All right, so now I'm going to introduce Brian Perchia. You can read his bio here. He is amazing. He is a fellow innovator and change maker in the policy and political space. We are lucky to have him here. He's the former spokesperson for Gavin Newsom. He has co-founded Civic Makers, which he'll be telling you about today. And he has also recently been a part of the team launching digitaldemocracy.org, which is a really awesome project. So we're happy to have you, Brian, and welcome.
Thanks, Allie. Yeah, wow. So I'll just stay there for a second so you can get a photo of me there. Thank you all for coming. I'm thrilled to be here, and the topic is something that is near and dear to my heart, and a lot of folks think in this room as well. And I'll be short and hopefully provide a couple ideas for maybe the idea fest afterwards, so we can kind of get some more. I guess there's 300 ideas on the site so far. So I'm going to go through some stuff I'm working on now, stuff I've done in the past, and we'll just kind of run through. I'm going to show a couple videos too. So Civic Makers, an organization that I started a year or so ago with the founder of Netroots Nation, Gina Cooper, and a former colleague, Lawrence Greska from the city of San Francisco. Simple idea, there isn't a place or enough places for folks that care about civic, tech, and policy to come together. We've done 8 events. We have usually a kind of cocktail reception, and then we bring in policy folks. We've had Supervisor Mark Farrell and David Chu from the Assembly, and we pick different issues to have a night of discussion about. First event we did was around kind of open data. We've done public broadband events and education events, and we recently did one on B Corps 2 weeks ago, just trying to let folks know about some other business models that are out there. And yeah, we got a couple other events coming up in San Francisco. And if you're around, let me know, and I'll give you my info. You can catch up. Okay, so I got involved in government to dramatically, hopefully, change policy and bring more people into it. I started working for Mayor Gavin Newsom in '06, and a simple idea that, again, people that had technology skills really didn't have a way to be involved in the process. Gosh, 6 years ago in August, we launched something called DataSForg, which was the City of San Francisco's open data program, basically putting public data, whether that's crime data or transportation data, in machine-readable format, so people that work at Google could create something, or any of the tech startups could create something. We were the first city after the federal government launched their federal effort to do this. It's been copied in all kinds of cities all over the world, and as we see here, some of you might be civic technologists or civic startups. I know Appalicious' founder Yo Yoshida's here, and spurred a whole new industry. So not only can you transform government and make it a place where more people are part of the process, and as we look at some of the approval ratings of government leaders and government as a whole, it's not very high. It's about as low as it can get. So there's all kinds of new products that are coming online just in the last couple of years. I mentioned one from Appalicious, Neighborland. There's organizations. One's Code for America, which is a Peace Corps for geeks that many of you have heard of, maybe you haven't, but doing really incredible work. In New York, there's Civic Hall. There's us Civic Makers in San Francisco. And there's investment, as we're in John Draper's Hero University. And one of my clients, Acela, got $143 million a couple weeks ago. They're one of the leading gov tech clients, providing permitting software and other types of more user-friendly designed. Change.org, I used to run communications for them. And OpenGov, which is just based down south a little bit. They bring financial information from cities and make it easy for the public to see what your government's spending money on. So a little bit about how I got started in this kind of open data track, or this kind of trying to use technology to make cities work better. Pothole, something that every city, kind of has to deal with. So in 2007, 2008, I got Gavin Newsom on Twitter, and he dramatically rose and had like crazy amounts of followers, like 1.5 million. And he had a propensity to respond to tweets about potholes. Say, I'm going to get right on it. I'm on it. And he did that a lot. Like I remember we went to Twitter and I was like talking to him. He said like 100, yes, I'm on it. Just responses to people complaining about different civic issues. So it's respectfully, Mr. Mayor, I told him that I didn't think that was the best use of his time to respond to all the tweets. It's very nice, but so we were at Twitter, and I'm like, oh, so there's this 311 service in San Francisco where people can call and report potholes or get questions answered. And I was like, Mr. Mayor, I whispered in there, like, maybe, we're at Twitter, maybe there's a way to combine 311 and Twitter so folks can text and tweet the actual 311 department to get their issue resolved. And 3 weeks later, we rolled out Twitter 311 for San Francisco, which is the first government integration of Twitter. Following that, there was the first API in municipal government called Open 311 that kind of came out of that. So Facebook and other services. And this has been replicated and used all over the place. So anyways, back to this pothole. So my wife put this article on my, this very small title, on my Facebook page last week. And it says, self-tweeting potholes, troll city officials, urge them to fix roads. I was like, okay. So I clicked on the article. And Panama City, a couple months ago, started putting sensors in potholes. And the pothole now tweets the city department when people run over it. I was like, wow, we've come a long way. Or maybe we haven't come a long way. I don't know. But it's definitely starting to spur some more action. Anyway, so just a pothole story. And now, let's see if this is going to start. I'm going to show you, I helped develop the city of Porto Alegre, Brazil's open government program about a year and a half ago. That's where participatory budgeting got started, where the public gets a chance to decide how some of the budget's being spent. I don't know, let's see if this plays. But we launched with an open data portal, a couple different apps, a hackathon, and this video to kind of show what's possible. So I told my point in Porto Alegre that we needed some video. I didn't tell them what, but the idea of like any citizen can transform their government.
Atenção, hein?
Legal.
Eu não sei nada.
So it's fun. I mean, I didn't really know what they were going to create for a video. I just thought, the idea of music would be kind of fun. And with Porto Alegre, I find, ultimately, this is an international movement. It's not like just San Francisco or, Chicago. It's truly international. And when you're able to tie open data with the budget of a city, That's where I started getting really interested in what's possible. Very few have really tied the two so much. And the cool thing, again, we've had all kinds of apps created in Porto Alegre. We created an app store. Tim O'Reilly told me years ago, he's like, okay, you've created this City of San Francisco open data effort. Well, you should have an app store that features the stuff the citizens or companies are creating. So they did the same thing. They've had all kinds of transportation apps created. That's a major problem in Porto Alegre. So anyways, that gets me to California. How do I get from Porto Alegre to California? So last year, I was speaking at a Transparency Week event in Sacramento, and I was a little frustrated because the state of California really hasn't embraced much of, that's why we're here, much of these user design, open data, any kind of buzzword you want to use for bringing more folks in to design a better government. They haven't really embraced it. So state of California received an F for transparency in government. Actually ranked 50th out of 50 states. Hasn't really been, hasn't been a focus of the administration or a lot of folks to really make it easy and accessible to figure out how our money's being spent. And yeah, so we got an F. So anyways, I was giving this talk about Porto Alegre and how open data knows no borders and kind of urging the state of California to move forward. And a woman came up to me from the California Health and Human Services Agency, and she said, you know, in like 3 months, we're launching our own open data portal for the state of California with the California Health and Human Services. We'll have asthma rates on there. We'll have WIC benefits, which are federal benefits for children, where you can see where your WIC benefits are being used. So you're like, oh, we're going to be doing this in 3 months, and we think because the federal government really moved a lot of the ball forward with health data, and a lot of the success in this area has been around health. Will you help? So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd love to help with the design and launch. So I did, and it launched last summer. It's been live. The state's portal, I think there's about 80 data sets on there, been live maybe 10 months or so. And their first big win came, I think probably everyone remembers the measles outbreak from a couple months ago. Everyone was very nervous about it starting in Disneyland. So the New York Times got access to, no one really knew, I think, from our side, from the state or the foundation, the California Healthcare Foundation was funding this effort, what people would create with it. Well, the New York Times grabbed the vaccine rates of kindergartners in the state of California by every school. And what did they do with it? Well, they created this incredible visualization, and it showed some helpful information for folks to know where, wherever you stand on vaccination. But for the public to see kind of where some of these clusters are. So as you see, not surprising, but Marin County, definitely an outlier from the rest of the state in terms of vaccination rates. So a lot of this information before it was kind of locked behind some gates, and you had to FOIA and whatever to get access to it. If you make it easily accessible, reporters like New York Times will create things that help drive policy conversation and inform the public. So now another idea that I helped launch a couple weeks ago. Digital democracy. It's digitaldemocracy.org if you're on your computer. 3 weeks ago, Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom and former minority leader for the Republicans, Sam Blakeslee, launched this thing called digital democracy. What is it? So I mentioned the state of California has very little transparency into the bill-making process. Bills are just made, pretty much. You don't really, unless you're going there and showing up in person, you really can't have much input. Senator Blakeslee, he left the Assembly, I think, 3 years ago. He noticed, he served for a number of years, that there were video cameras in most of the assembly rooms. So I think he started thinking. So he went to Cal Poly and founded this Institute of Advanced Technology and Public Policy. He's like, okay, there's video into most of the assembly meetings. That means it's via the Cal channel, which is our version of C-SPAN, and it's just open to the public to use as they will. So he and a bunch of smart engineers and students at Cal Poly for the last year and a half or so have been working on this effort where they've turned that video into a searchable YouTube meets C-SPAN database. So say you want to find about vaccination rates or bills or veterans bills. So if you go to now digitaldemocracy.org, you type in anything, any issue, what will come up is the transcript from the hearing on whatever veterans bill was there, or a vaccination bill. So the actual transcripts will come up. You'll and I'll show you in a second how it works. And then you can share that content online, and you can see who's speaking when. And then it also brings in the financial data, so you can see if there's a lobbyist speaking, who's paying them to speak. If an elected official is speaking, you can see who's contributed to them. And it just launched a couple weeks ago, and all these media outlets like the LA Times and Chronicle, everyone's kind of eating this up because our folks that are focused on this on the media side spend so much time going through these transcripts and meetings, and now they have it all at their fingertips. So this is just a photo from the event we did a couple weeks ago in the state capitol, and that's Jim Roberts. He was kind of the inspiration behind the project. He is a foster care advocate in San Luis Obispo. For 30 years, he's been driving up to Sacramento to be in that legislative hearing to fight for funding for foster kids. And Senator Blakeslee got to know him when he was working in Sacramento. And he wanted to make it easier for folks like him to find out when their bill is up and who's saying what when. So he doesn't have to drive up to Sacramento all the time. He can just search online and contact the person who's saying something about his bill. So we kind of had him front and center. And I'll let you hear a little bit more of kind of how this idea, which I think is something as we move into this next phase of the night, might be a good kickoff with Senator Blakeslee and Gavin Newsom.
The thing we've forgotten in this country is the importance of citizenship. We tend to lose sight of it. And what citizenship is not you vote, I decide. It's about reconciling the fact in a representative democracy that the public still has a voice, and their voice matters. The challenge is being able to amplify that voice, and to be given the opportunity to participate in that dialogue requires information. And so often that information is hidden.
Digital Democracy is a project we put together to open up government. It's a very closed place, and the public is largely not able to see what happens. In California, there are no transcripts, no minutes, no list of who is in the room influencing decisions that were made. With this powerful new tool, you'll be able to understand exactly what people are saying as laws are being written.
It's about giving people the tools to which they can make a better determination of the facts and assess those facts in a way that they could be part of the process of governing, as opposed to just waiting for the next election.
Digital Democracy is a software tool that did not exist before it was built here at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo by students that are involved in a learn-by-doing approach to not only learn, but to do and solve problems.
Well, honestly, it doesn't surprise me it's coming out of Cal Poly, which is literally one of the most dynamic universities anywhere in the country. Student population of digital natives that have grown up digital. They recognize we're going from something old to something new. And digital democracy is literally on the vanguard and the forefront of these changes. Citizens don't want things done to them. They want things to be done with them. And that's really what digital democracy is all about. I think it's going to be transformative.
So just a little primer, as you guys start thinking about stuff. When we launched this, I called it hacking a 21st century government. But if you provide more information, whether it's government information or citizen information to products like that, they'll work better. But this is just a simple idea that probably came out of something like this, and then students at Cal Poly went ahead and built it. So it just went live 3 weeks ago. And that's me. So if you're interested in talking more or want to come to one of the Civic Makers events too, just send me a note. And thank you very much for having me.